Assalamu alaikum. I'm thinking really hardly to say something funny, a joke, to wake everybody up, but nothing is coming. But anyways, let me initiate this session formally. The title of our session is the Sukuk Issuance Experience from Legal and Sharia Perspective. So we're going to be talking about the Sharia and legal aspects that we encounter or we experience when we are issuing Sukuk. So in this panel we have Mufti Dr. Irshad Ahmed, Chairman, Sharia Advisory Committee, State Bank of Pakistan. He is actively involved in providing consultation for development of policies and regulation for regulator authority and different Islamic financial institutions. Our next second speaker would be Dr. Muhammad Imran Ashraf Usmani, President and CEO of Usmani & Co. Private Limited. He is the resident Sharia board member of Mizan Bank, overseeing research, product development, and Sharia audit and compliance. He's also offering Islamic financial consultancy and Sharia advisory services to clients globally. A third speaker is Dr. Tariq Naseem Saab. He's the head of Islamic Finance Department, the Security and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. He has more than 18 years of experience. He has held key role positions, including Additional Director at SECP since 2020. He's also responsible for supervising Islamic finance, regulation, and supervision of Pakistan. Our last esteemed speaker would be Dr. Umar Hussaini, Secretary General, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Arbitration Center. He serves on the Governance and Ethics Board of IUFI and FRACE of the Central Bank of Nigeria, with expertise in Islamic finance law and dispute resolution. Umar has worked with UN, IDP, and OIC and has taught at International Islamic University, Malaysia. Even I'm a moderator, but I have 2 points, one suggestions that I will be sharing in the end. So, but let me initiate and invite our first speaker, who is Mufti Dr. Irshad Ahmed Ijaz. His topic to speak about is the role of Sharia in boosting innovation in Sukuk structure and emerging green products.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmadu wa nusalli ala rasulihi al-Kareem. Talking about Sharia aspect of Sukuk and possible structure of green Sukuk or social Sukuk. This is important topic, and this topic cannot be discussed without a reference to the legal and operational possibilities of launching on Sukuk. If we look at the Sharia standard on Sukuk and possible modes of financing, there are possibility of more than 15 type of Sukuk. We can structure Sukuk on trade-based mode, rental-based mode, also partnership-based mode, services-based, and also hybrid structures. So multiple structures from Sharia perspective are possible, more than around 15 possible structures. This is the first. Secondly, the ground realities and the domestic laws and domestic structure of legal domestic structure. Like for example, in Pakistan, we have federation and provinces. In some Islamic countries, we don't have this type of a structure, but the possible structure is state structure. In Gulf, we see the Emirat structure where we see 5 or 7 emirates. So the second important point which affect the Sharia structuring and Sharia type of mode which can be used in sukuk is the available flexibility and possibility of structuring. Sometimes you can structure a sukuk easily in a country, in an Islamic country, while in another country it becomes difficult for those who are living in that country, the structuring of the sukuk. This is the second important point. And the third important point, as we have heard about this in previous session also, the legal availability, the legal laws which are available, how the environment, legal environment is conducive. This is another factor which affect the Sharia and sukuk structuring. For this reason, we generally see the ijara structure of sukuk is more common. So much so, sometimes people think whenever we say the word sukuk, we simply mean the ijara sukuk, which is not correct. But this is because of the ease or the environment or legal conducive environment of any country. And the fourth important factor which contributes in structuring, the possibility of sukuk underlying assets. We discussed as we have heard in some speakers in previous session about asset light structure, and also some asset backed structure, asset based structure, and also possibility of real transformation or real transfer of the asset, these type of issues. So from Sharia perspective, the bar is very big. You can choose from multiple mode of financing, and also some hybrid structure are easily possible. But when we look about the legal conducive environment or the possibility of structuring or availability of underlying asset. For example, in Pakistan, because we have provinces and federation, so many sukuk which are based on provincial assets, they have some other difficulties as compared to those which are based on federation asset. Therefore, if we look from this perspective, whether we talk about the green sukuk, whether we talk about social sukuk, or sometime people are now talking about the waqf sukuk also, all these are possible. And when we look at about the possibility, the first that we look at the structure from Sharia perspective, we look at the availability of the asset, availability of legal supportive laws, availability of operational ease. Sometimes a sukuk is possible, but operationally it is very difficult, especially the sukuk which are based on services. Services-based sukuk are operationally difficult. From Sharia point of view, they are easy. From legal point of view, they are easy. So generally, we see that we are facing 4 type of issues: Sharia issue, operational issue, and legal issue, and sometimes we face a business issue. For example, if you look at the musharaka, pure musharaka sukuk, so sometime we see that in Pakistan, some years back, a sukuk has been offered in the market, but market was not interested because the sukuk structure was on the basis of musharaka, which is pure profit and loss sharing, and it is similar to equity financing. So from Sharia perspective, if I talk from Sharia perspective only, multiple possibilities are there, but keeping in view the ground reality, the available law, available structure, available acceptability in the market, ground reality, risk appetite, multiple things. So these are the issues that prevent Sharia product development department or the Sharia scholar to present different type of sukuk here. For example, Pakistan is an agricultural country, but still we are not able to offer a muzara based sukuk or a musaqat based sukuk or as a mugharasa based sukuk, cultivation based, or these type of sukuk still are not offered here. And also some social sukuk structures because of the lack of the law. So if I conclude my comment on that, I would say that keeping like the economic term, keeping the other variable constant, if you look at from Sharia perspective, the possibility are more than 15 structures. If I say 20 structures, hybrid structure, quasi structure, and pure vanilla structure, simple. But if I pay attention to some other variables, some other factors which affect, so our offering are very limited. You see only Ijara Sukuk, sometimes you see in Pakistan diminishing Musharaka Sukuk, in Gulf, Wakala Sukuk, and these are limited. And if we talk about the green Sukuk is a term which is not a Sharia term. This is obviously the term of utilization. The green Sukuk may be on Ijara based, may be on a diminishing Musharaka, maybe an agricultural Sukuk, maybe, or services based Sukuk. So this is basically the crux about the Sharia possibilities of the Sukuk, on the multiple use of the Sukuk, whether it is a green Sukuk, or a social Sukuk, or a Waqf Sukuk, or a general corporate Sukuk, or a sovereign Sukuk, or a short-term T-bill type Sukuk, or other short-term Sukuk. So this is basically my view about the possible structures.
Thank you very much. I think there is another issue, which is the propaganda issue. Girvi, mulk ko girvi kara diya. So I think one of the issue that we need to tackle is education. We need to educate people, common people, because you would want to do a lot, but at the same time, you have to tackle the propaganda that would create hurdles for you to promote Islamic finance. With this, let me invite Dr. Muhammad Imran Ashraf Usmani Saab, and his topic to speak about is resolving Sharia dilemmas in Sukuk, balancing compliance and practicability.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulil kareem, amma ba'd. First of all, I'm really grateful for inviting me in this important session about Sukuk, and to discuss and to think that what we can do to convert our conventional conventional securities or bonds or these requirements. Alhamdulillah, I have learned from the previous session, and it was a really very informative and productive session, especially Professor Dr. Kabir Saab's speech. It was really very good and very informative. And I would like to mention some briefly about the overview that what is being done in Pakistan and internationally, and what could be done or should be done. First of all, as you know better, that normally all financial institutions, they used to do securitization program or issue the Sukuk through sale and leaseback program. You know that sale and leaseback, as per the IOFI Sharia standard, is not very much favorable or preferable transaction, because it looks like a repo transaction. So it's look like buyback transaction, which is not allowed as per Sharia. This is why they have one condition, that the gap from buying and reselling should be at least 1 year, and there should be a lease agreement in between the two sales. So, and also usually the Sharia board says that whenever you want to do the sale and leaseback transaction, so you have to take the Sharia advisor, resident Sharia board member, special approval, and with the Sharia board approval sometimes. So it is not a preferable transaction, but still they are being used by usually almost all governments as well as corporates and institutions. The second thing is that, which we are talking about, hybrid Sukuk or asset-light Sukuk, or we can say that Tawarruq Sukuk. So we use the word, we should not want to use the tawarruk because it is not a good work. So this is why they used to name it commodity murabaha. But the issue is that in commodity murabaha that tawarruk is also not very much preferable, because these types of transaction does not serve for the community, serve for the nation, serve for the state. You know that after using these types of sukuk, these are very much tantamount, or you can say that they are very much replica to the governmental bonds. Only difference is that it is halal or this is haram in some way or the other. But so long as the proceeds of the sukuk is concerned to use in a productive way, it is not creating any good difference. The same proceeds which you are used by issuing bonds or conventional certificates to repay your conventional debt, or your overcome the budgetary deficit, or to overcome or to pay the interest, it is also here in this sukuk also. So they are being used, these money, these proceeds. You can see that only these 4-5 months, you have seen that 33% was issued Islamic sukuk. Why? Why not? Because was it a pressure from the Sharia scholar to issue that in these especially 3-4 months? Whether all the Islamic banks were especially pressurizing that? It is a market driven. It is a market driven. Basically, you have cheap liquidity and easy liquidity through Islamic banks. This is why they are issuing more and more sukuk. I'm not saying that it is bad, but we have to understand the fact, or we should be thinking on factual grounds. Nevertheless, I would say that it is not end of the world. There are various ways, if we think out of the box, there are various ways to do different types of sukuk. I have listed down just by sitting here some around 9 types of sukuk which very easily can be used here. And I have been working in different countries for issuing these types of sukuk. First of all, we have export refinancing system in Pakistan. What is export refinance in Pakistan? That basically State Bank of Pakistan gives money for the portfolio of export to refinance under the board of Mudaraba and Musharaka. So this money comes from the government of Pakistan. So we can securitize that. We can securitize that. We can issue sukuk against that. So for refinancing scheme, why we use the money of the government? We can securitize that. Issue the sukuk. This is the one way. The second option we can do is to housing refinance. We have done in Guidance Financial Group in US that they have Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, there are different securitization program. We have around 20 years back issued for them sukuk, although it is US, and it was very difficult to do that. But we have done that, and now you can see that Guidance Financial Group is working for last 30 years, and they don't have any shortage of the liquidity. And it is on the same prices or very nearby to conventional banking, because they have the same liquidity which comes from the Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mac. So all these refinancing through the securitization program is done there. So we have in Pakistan, there is many housing finance schemes. It could be refinanced, it could be securitized, and it could be securitized and its share, its asset, its sukuk can be traded into the secondary market very easily. There is no issue. Similar to that, consumer financing. For example, we need car, we need motorcycle. These are very essential things nowadays. So now we have Bikeya system, Uber system, Careem system, so on and so forth. So what we can do, that we can securitize that. And government can finance through securitization program, through issuance the sukuk of that. So it is one way of doing that. One way is that, as Dr. Kabir Sahib also mentioned, that green sukuk. You know, in Pakistan, we have PTDC, Pakistan Tourism Development Corporation. They have many resorts. And if they are saying that we don't have any asset, so you can use that for impact financing. We can just use some solar plates and without using the electricity, we can use that particular things. So, green sukuk issued on these PTDC assets and their resorts very easily, and they are clean. They are not as such in any charge. So we can use that. Or, for example, now we have started in Pakistan carbon trading. Carbon trading. Here in Karachi, mashallah, our Sindh government is making a lot of money through growing mangroves. So we have a lot of carbon trading opportunity. We can securitize that. And not going there, here it is difficult to grow. But if you go to KPK or Punjab, there are so many jungle and forest. So we can bring impact investors to bring and to securitize that, to issue the sukuk out of that. So this is, so basically we would see that there are around 17 sustainable development goals. We could see that how we can use them to issue the sukuk. Or we can use the SEG for issuing the sukuk. Another thing which we can do easily, that now we have many infrastructure development, like for example, roads, bridges, even mining. So, IOFI has issued particular standard on concession rights. So it should be issued sukuk on that. Like Rakwadik, we have a big asset there. So we can issue the sukuk. People can invest. And also we can do BOT, build, operate and transfer, for roads, for bridges, and we can securitize that. And we can issue the sukuk out of that. So maybe we are not thinking out of the box, but just we are thinking that which would be easier and just we can do very quickly. And they ask the Sharia scholar to give the flexibility for doing very fake type of tawarruk, like as they are doing in London Metal Exchange or maybe in Bursa, Malaysia or something like that. So basically we have to see if we want to do tawarruk, so we have to see that which products here available for doing tawarruk. For example, here in Pakistan, we can use airtime sukuk. You know that these telecom companies, they have too much airtime. We can purchase that and then we can sell to the distributors. So it would be very genuine transaction, and it is really bring the money to our own country. Similar to that, I would like to mention one thing. That in Pakistan, we have just around 20% financial inclusion, maybe more or less. 80% is not in financial inclusion. So, who are these 20%? Just leave the 80%. Now we will discuss for the 20%. Who are these? They are the depositors. But who are the borrowers? There is a pyramid. On the upside, only corporates are taking all 32 banks. They are giving all money to these corporates. But what about these depositors? Where that money, their money came from? Through business, through services. So it is a supply chain financing. It is a servicing sector financing, education sector financing. There are different services available. So we can use the whole pyramid. We are giving to only some of these corporates, but not giving. So basically we are going against the laws of objectives of Sharia. That your wealth should not be concentrated into few hands. So all wealth of the depositors or masses going towards the corporates. So we should think about that whether we are doing Islamic banking in a right direction, or if we do that, so you know that some generation maybe after us may will ask the question that new things were coming, supply chain was coming, blockchain was coming, smart data was coming, big data was coming. Why didn't you use that for securitization or for tokenization? Even nowadays, no need to issue the sukuk. You can issue the virtual token to enable the small people to invest that. So I told that 20% is in fact financial inclusion, but the remaining 80% what they have? They have the cash economy. So we can include them. We can use them to include. It is not only Islamic. It will be more nearby to objectives of Sharia. It is further better towards the economy. Dr. Kabir, you will know that everywhere in the world nowadays, they are talking about the supply chain, tokenization, and big data, open data, as well as using the algorithm system to lending the small or SMEs or MSMEs. So we should use these types of things for the better of the Muslim Ummah. So there is a hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ that kalimatul hikmah is dhallatul mu'min. فَمِنْ حَيْثُ وَجَدَهَا فَهُوَ أَحَقُّ بِهَا. Any word of this wisdom is the lost property of Muslim or believer. So from where he can get, it is his property. So we shouldn't do that. So basically, we should use for this 80% which are not financial included, we can use that as well for bringing in the financial inclusion through different fintech, through different microfinancing institutions, through different NBFCs. Not necessary that those previous classical banks, if you see the data, if you do just chat GPT or now Chinese AI has come, DeepSeek. So if you do that, so you will search what top 50 banks are doing. Previously, around 30 years back, I remember that the top bank were doing just lending, and then they have just Citibank or HSBC or so on and so forth. Now you can see that the top banks are Chinese banks. And why they have? They have a marketplace with them. Because to enable the vendors, to enable the B2B, to enable the B2C, to enable the bigger picture. So I mean that being a Muslim, we should be wise enough to see that how we can cultivate, we should innovate, we should create a more creative transaction, and it will be need of the time. So we should not waste the three years just for doing tawarruk. If you don't do, you will fail. It is not the way. We have to basically see out of the box, and we should make complete ecosystem to all these types of transactions to basically to benefit our country as well as our ummah as a whole, as a macroeconomy as well, and it will be more closer to the objectives of Sharia. This is what I was thinking for now. Thank you very much. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair. As they say, while there is a will, there is a way. I think this speech also answer one of the questions they raised to Professor Kabir of converting our debt. So I think this is one of the way that we can convert our 24 trillion Pakistani rupees or 87 billion US dollar to make it Sharia compliant. So innovations is required, and I think we have people who have the vision to convert the economy into Sharia compliant. Our third speaker is Dr. Tariq Naseem, and I have a couple of questions for him for his keynote speak. Is that SECP issued 2 concept notes last year to seek feedback from stakeholders to develop souvenir and corporate sukuk. So we will be interested to know the outcome of those efforts, as well as how, in his view, we would expect him to talk about it, is that sukuk being used as a sustainable development tool for infrastructure development in both private and public sector. So over to you, sir.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As a regulator, I think our primary job is to create enabling regulatory framework where sukuk can be issued and invested. Fund seekers can raise fund, mobilize financial resources for productive use, whereas the investors have the opportunity to invest and secure returns, safer returns for their investments. So for this purpose, last year we tried to consult the stakeholders to see if there are any gaps in the regulatory and legal framework available for the sukuk in Pakistan. And as a result of that consultation, I guess, there were certain regulatory interventions, and there are few things that yielded as a result of that interventions that I wanted to share with this August forum. On the sukuk, sovereign sukuk side, we know that primarily all the sukuk issuance by government of Pakistan are on a single sukuk structure, that is Ijara sukuk. First of all, there was a need to enable the regulatory framework, a legal framework, to provide the government of Pakistan with an option to use multiple structures, and therefore the government Ijara sukuk rules were amended. And subsequent to that, the sukuk issuance, sovereign sukuk issuance, started from the offering of those sukuk through stock exchange. From December last year, 2023, sovereign sukuk are being offered, issued, listed, and traded at Pakistan Stock Exchange. But there is still a need to enable short-term tradable sovereign sukuk for the income fund, the mutual fund industry, the money market fund, so that short-term investment needs can also be satisfied through the investment in sovereign sukuk paper. Right now, as rightly mentioned by Mufti Dr. Imran Ashar Usmani Saab, that Ijara structure is advised to be a structure of at least 1 year. And therefore, sovereign sukuks under the current structures cannot be short-term, 3-6 months, and still tradable. And therefore, we have come up with a solution whereby Mudaraba-based structure can be created, wherein such structure can be utilized by a special purpose vehicle to invest in government Ijara sukuk, and then this SPV can issue float sukuk that with tenure of 3 years and 3 months and 6 months, and wherein the short-term investment needs can be satisfied. Secondly, and more importantly, as a regulator, it is a concern that only few benefit from the sukuk issuance by government of Pakistan. The investor to sovereign sukuk are very limited in Pakistan, and particularly retail penetration retail participation is negligible. And therefore, we are looking at the ways and means to enable that investment at a retail level. And this can be done through Sukuk tokenization. This can be done to link the Sukuk issuance processes coupled with the technology like telcos to make available the retail government Sukuk at the smallest possible level, so that ordinary people of Pakistan can satisfy their investment needs in sovereign papers, make secure investment, and generate reasonable returns. This is not exactly what present sovereign Sukuk secondary market look like. In the secondary sovereign Sukuk market, only institutional investors and high net worth individuals are investing, and whereas general public is by and large is missing as a component of investor. By listing those Sukuk at Pakistan, a first step has been taken. Now, retail investor can directly invest into the Sukuk through their brokerage firms. Similarly, State Bank of Pakistan has also working on the initiative whereby individuals can directly invest in the sovereign Sukuk. On the second segment of Sukuk market, that is corporate Sukuk, I think considerable progress has been achieved. From the last couple of years, we have noticed that more than 120 Sukuk, corporate Sukuk, have been issued in Pakistan, totaling a total issue value of around 860 billion rupees. Just in last 6 months of this financial year, 115 billion rupees has been raised by corporates through Sukuk issuance in the Pakistani market. And there are some very differentiating characteristics of those Sukuk that needs to be understand. First of all, for the first time, I guess, we noticed that Sukuk issued by corporate are being invested by non-bank financial institutions. The income fund, money market fund, the institutional investor, the Tikafal operator, the insurance companies are investing in the corporate Sukuk market, and thereby securing their investment returns and with some type of ease of doing investments in Sharia compliant manner. Secondly, issuers are using multiple structures and mode to raise finance. For example, as mentioned in previous presentation, airtime as a subject matter of Sukuk. The largest telecom operator in Pakistan, that is Jazz, has issued this year airtime based Sukuk of rupees 15 billion. It was a privately placed Sukuk, unlisted, unsecured, but yet received overwhelming response at it was oversubscribed many times. And we saw that innovation can be done without creating complicated structures. It was a very simple and easy to understand structure where the Sukuk investor invested in the airtime, they purchased that airtime from the telecom operator on a discounted price, and then that airtime was sold to franchises of Jazz Pakistan at the full retail price. And thereby, Sukuk investor were able to generate hefty returns as per their terms and conditions. So simple airtime structure was used and deployed by Jazz, and as a result, this transaction was awarded to international awards for best structured deal of Sukuk in Pakistan. But most of the corporate Sukuk in Pakistan using Shirkat-ul-Aqd structure to fund their working capital needs. And under this structure, they issued short-term 6-month Sukuk and mobilize resources to fund their working capital need. What, as a regulator, we are focusing is to enable issuance of such Sukuk that also trigger economic activity, a real economic activity. And for that, I think the business expansion project related funding needs are also be tapped into the Sukuk market so that corporates and businesses can raise fixed tenure funding through corporate Sukuk to fund their infrastructure needs, the business expansion need, so as to actually create real economic activity as well, which is the ultimate objective of Islamic finance. And we saw that in Pakistani market, pharmaceutical companies, the sugar industry, the services sector, power sector companies, the telecommunication companies are extensively using the Sukuk structure nowadays to raise short-term funds for their shorter period tenure projects. But for the longer tenure, medium to short, long-term tenure, there are only few Sukuk issuance. For example, the Intertech Pakistan has issued a 25-year Sukuk based on diminishing Musharaka concept to fund a project whereby the water was required to be channelized from Hyderabad to Thar for industrial purposes. So we have seen the structures that enable infrastructure funding needs in corporate sector as well as in sovereign sector. We saw the Neelam Jhelum project Sukuk, we saw the Dasu Dam Sukuk, and we can assure the issuer of Sukuk in the sovereign as well as in the corporate field that there are multiple tested structures that are available in Pakistan that can be utilized to meet the infrastructure funding financial needs of different projects. But at the time, we are cognizant of the challenges as well. For example, in Pakistan, presently, all the Islamic financial transactions are being governed by the laws that were primarily made for the regulation of and supervision of conventional transaction. In that case, contract enforcement of Islamic financial transaction could be a challenge. One way that it could be addressed through, obviously, an alternate dispute resolution mechanism. But in the court of law, there is a need to have a reference law that can be linked to and that can be referred to while settling the disputes. At this moment in time, for example, if a dispute arises on a ijara transaction and when it will end up in court, the court will look for the primary law, and the only primary law available in the Pakistan for that, I guess, is contract law or the leasing law. We know that the rights and obligations of party are different in leasing and ijara, and therefore, there is a need to have a dedicated law that support and that provide a legal risk reduction mechanism for Islamic financial transaction. And therefore, our focus is to create a dedicated primary law for Islamic financial transactions in non-bank financial sector so as to mitigate the legal risk in Islamic financial transactions and in the Sukuk market. In addition to that, I think we can also learn from the many examples of international players. Many examples have been quoted since morning where different jurisdictions have used different structures to meet their funding need, be it the green Sukuk or infrastructure Sukuk or Waqf-linked Sukuk. These structures can be replicated, can be copied, can be used as a base structures, and Sukuk can be issued for infrastructure funding needs, the social finance needs, the infrastructure development needs, and corporate business expansion need. I guess the Sukuk market in Pakistan has entered in a new era of development. In the days to come, we are hoping and we are sure that this Sukuk market will enable not only the government but the corporates to raise and mobilize financial resources for their business need in a Sharia compliant manner as well as in an acceptable manner where ordinary investors will be participating and taking benefits from the development of this important segment of Islamic finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You spoke about how these private Sukuk are oversubscribed. And if you look at even data, these sustainable linked Sukuk relatively have high subscription ratios. So private has oversubscribed in sustainable linked Sukuk are even more subscribed internationally. So that's one thing. And I was just quickly going through it. You mentioned about dams. I think the government issued a green bond in 2021 on Basha Dam, which could have been a Sukuk, a green Sukuk. So I think the government needs to move toward that Islamization by issuing green sukuk, rather green bonds. Our final speaker is His Excellency Dr. Umar Osani, and his topic is Pakistan State, Islamic Bank's readiness to enter effectively to sukuk market and initiating steps, regulation and institutionalization. Over to you, sir.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wa mursaleen Sayyidina Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I know this is the last speaker on the panel, and it can be a bit boring. Haven't heard, what we call kibar al-ulama, very senior scholars sharing with you the best structures we should adopt when it comes to sukuk market in Pakistan. I'll just kind of give a brief remarks because I think they've said it all, and we've listened to a lot of presentations, brilliant ones since morning, and I don't think I have anything much to add. But again, I'm going to speak from different perspectives. First is the perspective of being the former CEO of IILM, an organization that is still issuing short-term sukuk. And under my leadership, we started issuing an average of $1 billion every month. And it boils down to structuring. And this is why I sincerely appreciate the views expressed by the earlier speakers on the panel regarding the different innovative structures. Structuring is like our game. It's like kids are playing with, and that's why we have to wear different hats when structuring. You have to wear the hat of Sharia. You've got to know a bit about Sharia. In my own case, I have background in Sharia, full background there. You have to have a bit about the legal background, basically, of course, the financial one. So wearing these three and knowing the market dynamics is very important. And most of our Sharia scholars we have, even at the AOFI level and even at the Pakistani level, they do have background in law. And this is something we also appreciate. So structuring actually boils down to aspects of securitization. Like you talk about the airtime, you securitize airtime. These are innovative structures that have been used globally. What we do, or what we did previously at IILM was we have this Wakala Sukuk program. So we had hybrid sukuk within the Wakala itself, and it allowed us to issue more. At a point, ladies and gentlemen, we issued a 2-week sukuk. Why I'm emphasizing on this is because I'm told to speak to the banks, the Islamic banks' readiness, to kind of be part of this conversion into full Islamic finance kind of industry. So the Islamic banks have to be innovative. Now, scholars are giving you the guidance of what to do, that you can securitize airtime, you can tokenize this, we can actually explore even retail sukuk, where individuals can buy, you and I. Now we have to take that to another level. We've seen this in some countries, in Indonesia, in Nigeria, where everybody can buy sukuk, actually. They can buy sovereign sukuk. Now, how do we take that to another level? And that takes me to the discussion on the secondary market. Now, the secondary market liquidity is extremely important, and I'm sure you've heard about liquidity since morning. Now, how do you ensure liquidity on the secondary market? We had the CEO of the Pakistan Stock Exchange earlier, and he gave a brilliant speech. And I was really interested, I really followed the speech, but I was more interested in the liquidity of the sukuk itself we're talking about. We want to use sukuk, innovative structures, to transform the industry, to convert the ribawi debts, the riba-based debts to Islamic. Now, how do we kind of transform them? Who will buy if there's no liquid market? Nobody will buy. There's no investor that will buy. So we have to be concerned about liquidity on the secondary market. And that's why even when we tokenize or when we use blockchain, we adopt fintech, what do we ultimately use? Now, when it comes to settlement, you buy your sukuk. When do you, or you want to sell, when do you get paid? Or when do you pay? Do you go for the normal T+3 or T+2? That doesn't work for retail investors. So we have to think of a situation where we adopt fintech to be able to have what they call instant settlement. I have written on this, or academically as well, how blockchain can be used for settlement of sukuk. Because again, even at ILLM, my previous organization, we do T+2, T+3, and I just feel, no, sometimes we need to have an instant, particularly when you are actually trading the security on the secondary market. It's extremely important. The essence of secondary market is liquidity. You have your sukuk, you need money now, you have to sell. You need a market to sell. So it's important for us as sukuk structurers, the bankers, the DCM team, again, we call them the DCM, the debt capital market teams. It's important for you to go back to the drawing board, because the essence of secondary market liquidity starts from your primary issuance, your structuring itself. How did you structure? Was it Sharia compliant? In most cases, we see a lot of sukuk being traded on the secondary market, on the London Stock Exchange, on the Irish Stock Exchange. If you look at the structure, it's 100% murabaha. Now, how is that tradable? I don't know from the Sharia perspective. So these are things we need to look into. And I just wanted to start with liquidity. Now, let me talk on one other thing that was discussed earlier. The issue of total conversion of the industry. You know, I think this is an ambitious objective, and I congratulate the country for it. This is really good. Now, how do we go about it? I know that was the last question for the other panel. You know, I just wanted to touch on this as well as an outsider. Now, I believe the stakeholders, the State Bank of Pakistan, and even the capital market regulators, they are adopting a kind of a phased approach. You know, this is something very important. You cannot change things overnight. For me, I wouldn't even start with the debt capital market. I will make a policy now, okay, if the government wants financing, every financing has to be Sharia compliant going forward. At least those are the low-hanging fruits. Then you talk about the monetary policy, the fiscal policies, they have to be fully Sharia compliant, because these are things coming from the regulators. Now from there, we move on to the next aspect, the legal and regulatory reforms. As some of the scholars mentioned earlier, you need to reform the laws. Yes, we talk about resolving disputes. It's a challenge. Even in Malaysia, everybody talks about Malaysia. It took some time before they got to where they are now, where a judge will sit hearing or determining a case involving sukuk, and will just pause and refer it to Sharia scholars at the central bank. It took some time to get to that level. But again, we have to start looking into these aspects now. Malaysia is an English common law based system. Pakistan also has English common law, history. So it's very easy to learn from other jurisdictions. So these are things we need to change gradually. Now, just quickly on resolving disputes, particularly if you have an international sukuk and there are disputes, how do you resolve it? This is something we do in my organization at the moment, because if you go to the court, for instance, the English court, you cannot use Islamic law as a governing law. It's difficult. We've had the Eximco case and a number of cases. It never worked. Those were Murabaha cases that appeared in the English court. The English court said, no, Islamic law cannot be the governing law, even though the party stipulated it. That was really awful. But after Rome II Convention was introduced, for arbitration, you can stipulate and you can utilize Islamic law. And one thing we are doing again, I just want us to consider this as the overall legal and regulatory reforms we'll be making to full conversion to Islamic finance. We have to ensure that end-to-end Sharia compliance from the pre-contract level up to post-contract issues. Pre-contract means how you negotiate the deal, how you draft the legal documentation, then the agreement itself. Here we're talking about sukuk. Ultimately, when there's a dispute, how do you resolve it? So these are things we have to bear in mind. Now, I know I don't have much time. I just wanted to touch on a few issues. We've heard a lot on R&D from Prof. Kabir Hassan. That was brilliant. The need for, the town, what we call the town and the gown, to kind of collaborate, to work together is very important. I have academic background as well, so it's really good to kind of hear that. And ultimately, there are other few issues I would like to touch on before I conclude. The DCM teams, the structuring teams of our Islamic banks, as I said earlier, should be ready for the transition. They shouldn't wait for the regulators. They should be the one to help the regulators to get to the transition. Now, we've talked about different structures of Sukuk. The scholars have excellently explained this, that we have different structures we have not seen people using. I talked about Mugarasa. Sukuk Mugarasa actually is the agriculture, which you can use for forestation. You know, you can plant trees all over. These are not being seen, in the industry. So I think we should encourage more innovation going forward. And of course, there was a discussion on whether we need a dedicated law or legislation on Sukuk in Pakistan. As an outsider, I will advise that, yes, you need a full-fledged law. Now, what do you have in other jurisdictions? That's the question you're going to ask me. Malaysia, Oman, Bahrain, they have legislations, but they are mostly merged. Some are in form of regulations, basically, guidelines. But I will suggest to the stakeholders here to think of coming up with a standard law. You can actually be the leader there. Even though Pakistan is a little bit late, but you can come behind to become the leader of the industry globally. So you can do it. Having a dedicated law, full legislation that goes to the parliament actually will help a lot, particularly when you talk about the sustainability component, because Sukuk is one thing. When you bring the sustainability dimension into it, there are a lot of obligations, reporting obligations. How do you measure the achievements? How do you measure the impact itself? So there are a lot of issues, and some of these have to be regulated in the law. And finally, I would like to briefly touch on the AOFI Sharia Standard number 62, which is always the big elephant in the room. I sit on AOFI board as well, so don't expect me to say anything against the standard. But one thing I would like to say is that the scholars have spoken today in terms of why we need to be innovative. As a lawyer, I'll tell you, beneficial ownership of an asset is the real ownership under the common law. Is the real ownership. That may be different under the Sharia a little bit. So this is where you have a kind of a clash between two legal systems. And this is where I feel there's a need for more consultation between the lawyers and the Sharia scholars on how some of these things work. I've written a lot about this over 10, 15 years ago on the dynamics between legal and beneficial ownership in Sharia Sukuk structures. So that's why I just wanted to say this briefly. It's important. But what AOFI is doing, I think, is the right thing. On a general note, we have to say that we see a lot of things happening. And I think the chairman of the Sharia Advisory Board of State Bank of Pakistan, the Sheikh, mentioned it earlier. We see a lot. You know, you see some structures, some Sukuk structures. You wonder, how were these approved? And that led me many years ago to write on fatwa shopping with Prof. Kabir Hassan here on fatwa shopping, because we question how some of these structures were approved. So we found that people shop for fatwa. You go to Scholar A, you don't get a fatwa, then you go to Scholar B. I tell you, I'm going to pay you $100,000 to give me, because you're popular, you just sign. We've seen that. So that's why I think AOFI is coming with this kind of strict kind of analysis. There are some kind of, you talk about asset-light structures. Yes, they're asset-light. There are some that do not even have anything here beyond asset-light structures. So we've seen different practices in the industry globally, and that's why some of us actually try to juxtapose between the different views when it comes to criticisms against the AOFI standards. I know bankers do not like this, but they should see the reason why AOFI needs to come this big. Issues some of the bankers have raised in terms of transfer of assets from, from balance sheet, to the Sukuk holders, all this can be resolved. We all know Sukuk structures have what they call the delegate. Delegate represents the Sukuk holders. So this can be structured and in an acceptable way to the Sharia scholars. I don't think it's a problem. So these are some of the views I would like to express. I do have more to say, but I can see that we're tired and I'm the last speaker today. But I'm happy to take a lot of questions. I love Q&A, and I look forward to your Q&A. Wassalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. Um, Before we conclude the session, I would like to add a couple of points. And these 2 points are based on some empirical data. You know, when you talk about America, a lot of people will say it's a land of opportunities. But when you talk about Pakistan, it's a land of missed opportunities. And why? But I'm gonna start this thesis with the Shakespeare Romeo and Juliet, where the Juliet says, "A rose by any other name would smell as sweet." So, so name is just a label, no matter what. It doesn't affect the essence of something. So if you look at the Wabda Sakuk in 2004, that was a green Sakuk. It was, in fact, more than green Sakuk because it focused on land for agriculture and it focused on hydel energy. What does it mean? It fulfilled the sustainable city and community, SDG 11, climate action, SDG 13, affordable and clean energy, SDG 7, industry, innovation, infrastructure, SDG 9, and good health and well-being, SDG 3. So all the way coming down to a recent Dasu Sakuk, issued in 2024. So I dig in, and there is a World Bank report on it in 2013-14. And it has done a lot of assessment, and that assessment can be used as one of the assessment criteria for calling something Sakuk, a green Sakuk or not. What is that criteria? Because I wanted to do it. It was introduced by the International Capital Market Association in 2014. Use of proceeds, that's the framework. Process for project, evaluation and selection, management of proceeds, reporting, and then external reviews, second party opinion, annual reviews. When you think of these things, it makes green Sakuk, sustainable Sakuk, expensive. They are marginally more expensive because these steps require investments. So these costs are associated with the development of these framework and then external reviews, third-party reviews. So what we're going to do, I think, and this should be what we need to propose to the government, they need to provide financial incentives to cover some or most of these expenditures. And this is where a lot of countries are doing. The government is providing incentives. They are rebating and compelling these institutions that are issuing Sakuk to do it. Last and end, when we talk about Sakuk, this program started with the green Sakuk, but remember, green Sakuk is not all about climate. It's more than climate. For example, it's a real estate. And why I'm saying it? Because when you look at Pakistan, two issues that we can highlight it, and I think we need to focus on. Food security, because one of the issues that we're going to be hit really hard, and in fact we are being hit very hard, is food security. So we need to raise these Sakuks and make sure that we spend enough on the food security. Second one, affordable housing. Go through the newspaper, every day you talk, every provisional government is talking about affordable housing. So Sakuk should be utilized for these social causes as well, that will eventually end in this sustainability link Sakuk. And eventually we have a respect for the ocean. So remember, one of the SDG is anything below the water, anything in the water. So all these steps will eventually take us to the blue Sakuk, and this is something we need to plan it. So liquidity Sakuk, which have been issued for a long time in Pakistan. In addition to this debt transformation, we need to work on the social and sustainable Sakuks, and that's one of the, in fact, that is the prime objective of Islam and Islamic economic system. Thank you very much. And in the end, I would like to thank all the panels. And we can have any questions, answers after the end of this session, inshallah. So thank you.